Hello and welcome to episode 41 of Shared Discovery, the show and podcast dedicated to sharing the many exciting, enjoyable aspects of games, gaming, and especially early games. So, I'm your host Victor, and today I'm joined again by my co-host Ron. Ron, how you doing?
Hello, I'm good, Victor. As always, how are you doing today?
I'm doing awesome. Mm-hmm. We have a sweet topic. We've talked about this for a while now.
Yeah.
I thought it was about time, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about early access games.
It's been coming up a lot in conversations, not with just yourself, but with a few people I know, because it's everywhere nowadays, seemingly everywhere.
It really is just ubiquitous. And even if it isn't, the discourse around it is.
Yeah.
Right? So we thought we would just break that down. Like, where did it come from? How did it start? Because it's relatively recent.
Yeah, real fresh.
Pretty fresh. So we thought we'd break that down today. But what have you been up to? What games have you been playing recently?
Oh, man. I mean, Magic the Gathering's always been good to me.
You got a good pull recently.
Yeah, Ristic Study was nice.
Ooh, a pretty one, too.
Right.
That's a good pull. $41.
Didn't realize it was 41.
Yeah.
It's gone up a little bit since I last checked.
That's awesome.
That's nice.
What deck are you playing these days?
Oh, man. I've actually been struggling on which ones to nail down. I've been kind of just skipping around.
Waffling a little bit.
Yeah, I'm remaking a deck that I had, anew again. It's the Villainous Wealth.
Yes. I love this deck.
Tazziger's Villainous Wealth.
Tell them about this, because this deck is so funny.
So, Villainous Wealth is a card that it's an X costing card, which means you can put as much mana, much resources into it as you want. And it essentially, you get to play another person's deck, equal that many cards. Like, you just draw off of their deck that many cards, where X is the amount of cards, and then you can play all of the spells that cost less than that X amount as well. So then you're just playing other people's decks, but like in a really aggressive and weird, mean way.
It's so funny though, because normally I hate my things being stolen, but you slam that down, you put like 20 into
20
it,
cards.
And like, can I play 20 cards from your deck? And I'm like, yeah, I want to see what you do with that. It's hilarious. Okay, cool. I'm excited to play against this again soon.
Yeah. I'm putting the Ristic Study in there. I'm bumping up the like deadliness on it a little, and
I'm stoked. This is awesome.
Right?
Nice. That is so good to hear. I'm also playing Magic. I've been just kind of toning it down and trying a different approach, right? Normally I was a diverse gamer. Like just play a bunch of decks and then keep switching. But now I've condensed it to 2 or 3 that I'm just playing on repeat to get the most out of those decks.
I like it.
So I went from the generalist to the specialist approach.
Very nice.
To try to like see the ins and outs of these couple of decks.
Yeah.
So just trying to because it's 100 cards and only one of each in each deck, so you see something different each time, and you learn a lot more about an individual deck if you spend games with it.
Oh yeah. And I have a weird habit of trying to make decks where I see all of the cards in one game. So
you like card draw.
Well, how'd you know?
Whoa. Other than that, playing Power World. I think that's relevant to today's episode.
I am playing that as well.
Power World came out into early access about a month ago at the time of this recording.
Relevant.
Very relevant to this. We'll talk about that for a little. $30 for early access from 120 hours in. And now I'm starting to approach the end or a replay. So it's pretty good cost to time ratio there, I think.
I know that's not a good measurement, but like, what does that even factor out to? Like, what's a 30 to
25 cents in an hour?
It's like a gumball machine.
Yeah, it's a good return. It's better return than I've spent on World of Warcraft. Am I right? So that's a good segue. Let's put a pin in that. We'll come back to Power World here for a bit, but we got to do our housekeeping. And so, of course, check us out on Instagram. This is where you can keep up to date on when our gameplay episodes are coming out.
I'm looking forward to those.
We got another D&D gameplay coming out real soon here. So keep an eye out there for that. And then YouTube, that's where you can watch it. And that's where you can, for those podcast listeners, that's where you can come and watch some of these unique episodes, the gameplay episode. Filmed a really fun Valentine's episode where we mixed up the set a lot, had a lot of co-hosts. Recommend watching that. And then if you have any comments, or questions, concerns you want to tell them to us directly, you can email us at shareddiscoveryshow@gmail.com. And you can leave comments in the YouTube videos, which this person did actually too on our root video in episode 14. So
yeah.
I think this is your game. So I think let's read this out.
Right on. So this is the YouTube comment on episode 14, the root video, which we should definitely revisit root one of these days.
We should.
And this is Yarzel, 13753. Very nice. In my opinion, the Vagabond is the strongest one if left unchecked, because it looks so harmless early on in the game. I would argue it looks harmless at most times, if not all the time in the game, because it's just one piece.
It's just a single piece. It's very misleading.
But let me get on with this. When the other armies increase their physical presence on the board, as long as you don't play the thief subclass or go murder hobo, pretty straight, makes sense. You don't cause any harm and can trade and dirtle early to mid game and then completely snowball with victory points. Played Root last week, and I actually wanted to play another faction because I wanted to try out a new one instead of my favorite, but got it as a random draw anyway and won the game by stacking the clearing task victory points for like 12 and 2 turns. I don't think they'll let me play Vagabond in a while. Big old grinning smiley face. And yeah, this is true. This is facts, man. Like, these Vagabonds are incredibly powerful, incredibly strong, but I guess I was a little biased in that my table never lets the Vagabond do much, because it's like, you're right. That first line there, the Vagabond is strongest one if left unchecked. Very true. But I also find it's one of the easiest to check, because like you really only have to send the Vagabond into the woods 2 times in the whole game to kind of get them like not
slow the snowball.
Yeah, it really significantly slows them down, and that only takes like 3 or 4 combats total. And if you can convince other people to do those combats for you against the Vagabond, you're winning, right? So the Vagabond is a really good political tool,
and it's a good political tool both ways as you play it, because it's so easy to say, well, you attack me, you're not going to get points. Where you attack any other faction, there's a way to get points. All you're doing is slowing down the Vagabond. And we talked about this after our games last time, where it's like, where I just won with the Vagabond, because you just sit there chilling, doing quests, going in and out of the woods, hanging out.
Just like they said, like you're just dirtling.
You just dirtle, and it's because nobody wants to attack you.
You don't get anything out of it.
You don't get anything out of it, but you get the chance to win. Think about it this way. If you attack the Vagabond, you get a chance to win the game.
But it's only fair to attack the Vagabond if you get other people to do it too. Because then you're giving an advantage. If you do it more than once, you're giving a really like distinct advantage to the other people. You're slowing your game down and the Vagabond. So then at that point, you might even want to join forces.
Yeah, you're giving 2 other people extra turn, essentially.
Yeah, because that's the thing about Root, is it's very much like there's knock-on effects to everything you do.
It's real. Like, I played the cats for the first time, and you have to do every move meticulously to win. Like, so specifically because of the compound fact to like, oh, 5 turns ago I didn't place this resource here. Oh, I'm out. I'm out of the game. Oh, no.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, taking 1 turn off, if you're not working with the whole table to say, we need to put the Vagabond in place, you're in trouble.
And certain factions get hurt more by that combat than others. So, like, the cats really can't afford it, except maybe once in the game, or burning a bird card. But then it's like, you should probably have better things to do than fighting the Vagabond. But also, if the Vagabond's in your territory, you might want to be fighting him. I don't know. It's just... It's exactly as you put it. It's one of the strongest scorers, but generally I have a lot of players at my table that check the insurgency faction. They understand the scoring of the insurgency factions to be way faster paced than everybody else. So we always make sure to just like create cabals and like scheme against them continuously.
Exactly. And you've learned that over the course of time, and we're spreading that info now through Yarzel 3753. So thank you so much. We will definitely do a Root follow-up episode because there's so many other factions to talk about there. So thank you for that comment, but let's talk about some early access games.
Yeah.
So question here at the top of the hour for you. What early access games have you played? What comes to mind when I ask you that?
One of my favorite early access games, Kenshi.
Ooh.
It's niche.
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of people have heard of it. There was like a spike in its exposure when it went like full release, right? But I don't know. It's really hardcore survival mechanics. Like dying in it is really easy. You're not like a specific character, so it's kind of like a role-playing game, real-time strategy mixed with survival and base building, and it's a strange game.
Sounds
but
like
it's a sandbox.
Ooh, okay. Now, you got me with sandbox.
Yeah, sandbox, huge open world. I was like, well, Pal World is like Kenshi, but Pal World you get to capture people, but Kenshi also has a little bit of that, but it's called slavery, and I don't really think that. Wait, is Pal World secretly like sweatshop slavery?
I think it wears it on its sleeve. I don't think it's secret.
In that case, yeah, like you can do like incredible things in Kenshi, like drug running or other.
It sounds like a very deep game.
It's so deep.
That's awesome.
Yep. Individual.
You showed me this game. It
Health.
looks really interesting. Very vulnerable. I like when your characters are super vulnerable.
Yes.
It adds to the tension.
You just
in the
die
game.
at any time. You go to the wrong place, you're gonna get eaten by cannibals, right?
Absolutely. Let's see. Power World. I've played Power World. I haven't played Kenshi. Let's see. A lot of good games started in early access. Hades. Hades was in early access. People don't remember this because how huge it was.
And like they didn't need to, but they did anyway.
Yeah. Ark. Let's see. Minecraft was in early access. It was like the first one. We'll talk about that. So a lot of great games. One of my most favorite ones right now, V Rising. That started out as a vampire survival game. But
Vampire Survivor, was that one?
Vampire Survivor, I think it was in early access.
I remember it being one.
The auto shooter.
Yep.
That one's really cool. But what is an early access game, Ron? We should probably define this.
We probably should.
We're like 13 minutes in.
Yeah, before we get ahead of ourselves, looks like we've already gotten ahead of ourselves.
We've gotten way ahead of ourselves. We do this. So let's read this definition. So I got this from Wikipedia, most credible source for podcasts. So it's also known as alpha access, alpha funding, paid alpha, or a game preview. It's a funding model in the video game industry by which customers can purchase and play a game in the various pre-release development cycles, such as pre-alpha, alpha, beta, while the developer is able to use those funds to continue further development of their game. So fancy way to say you play the game before it's finished.
Yep, and it's been around forever, not necessarily being called alpha access. We'll get into the history in a moment, but it's been with us since the ancient times of video gaming. I remember playing the original PlayStation, getting the demo discs.
Yes.
Like, come on.
Yes, I remember that too. I remember going on and just looking for those demo discs.
Yeah.
I was like hoping they would come with the game I just bought. Give me one. See what's coming out.
Right.
I don't even think I put that in here in the notes. That's awesome. Demos. We'll write that down.
Remember PC Gamer magazine and stuff? It would
yes.
have tons of demos for you to try.
I love that. So that honestly is a good place to start because we're going to be talking about the 3 stages of gaming, of game testing, right? Because early access, the term is that, and the way we think of it is super new, but it's essentially testing your game, and it's been done through alpha/beta testing.
It's just a new spin on an old idea.
Exactly. So I thought we'd rewind a little bit and talk about that concept. And so I found this article. It's called The 3 Major Stages of Game Testing, and it starts with alpha/beta testing. And this is the original form of early access for select few people. And I say select few people because game developers traditionally, they didn't release unfinished versions of their products to the public. They relied on in-house testing teams with non-disclosure agreements.
And it makes a lot of sense because like there's a lot of competition in gaming and production of games and stuff, so you want to keep your ideas close to your chest. How many times have you seen like a movie come out and there's a movie that's like the same exact plot and like same themes, like it's a pirate movie, oh look at this other lower budget pirate movie that's trying to steal the energy. I think you even saw that with like Five Nights at Freddy's, with like some movie with Nick Cage in it where he just beats up automatons or something. Like terrible movie, but they got in. Yeah. They got some hype money, and it actually was like super successful. It's like Willy's Wild World or something like that. I don't remember.
I saw ads for that weird Nicolas Cage movie.
The same thing with video games.
It happens in video games all the time too.
Oh yeah, you produce a video game.
Medal of Honor, Call of Duty.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, you got it.
And now Medal of Honor is where? Right? That's where it started. And Call of Duty was like, let me grab that.
Right. Halo Killers is a similar concept, or WoW Killers is like. Maybe not before or at the same time, but after a little bit, trying to steal that like energy, that hype energy.
And so the point of this in-house team, like you said,
keep it tight, close to the chest,
so people don't steal it. Yeah. And so the quote here from the article is, during the alpha testing stage, this is the phase of game testing where the game is still in development phase, along with which parallel testing is done to ensure the game is developed without any glitches and is working smoothly without crashes. This stage requires intense documentation of hardware and software failures so that the game developers can fix it at early stages. And what this means is that even in early access, most games aren't like at this stage. They're beyond that.
They're way past this point. Because at this point, you're like missing assets, sounds.
There's no visuals.
You might not have voice acting in yet. Like certain parts of the game will not be implemented, like that are necessary to make it like a believable or functional game.
You need trained professionals to play test it. Like you and I, we've played a lot of games, but we couldn't just go in without training and at this stage of the game. We need to know the software. We need to be able to talk with the team, know what they need.
And the visuals would probably even be just like incomprehensible to just a layperson like
Exactly.
us.
So if you don't have the training to understand the software at this stage, whatever. So this is like the very, very early stages where they need raw code, right? And so you and I can come in at later stages when it's in a put together state and say, okay, there's this bug here. Here's my feedback here. Maybe if plug that, hold there. I don't know the software enough. I don't have tech training to go in here.
We'd never be in that position.
No. Absolutely. So this is the alpha testing stage. Pretty much always done in-house. So this is the less fun stage of development. This is where the major game functionality and graphical UI is just not there. It's still in development.
And I've seen this term alpha testing used in early access games as like it's better than beta. It's better than like you're getting in even earlier, but like you're not actually getting the alpha version. It's almost like the term. It can just be used for like early.
Yeah, it's kind of lost its meaning over time, and which we'll see as
watered down.
Watered down's a great way to put it. In early as early access has come around, especially since the range is crazy on the quality. It's kind of lost its meaning, but historically it meant like really early.
It's a development term.
It's a developmental term.
It's almost scientific.
And now it's kind of like this buzzword. Like, oh, the alpha version of the game.
Advertisers got a hold of it.
They got a hold of it. So this was done by professionals. So we moved to the beta testing, right? So as we do. So the game is almost production ready, with all of the major issues being fixed. In this phase, the game testers are required to extensively find all the possible ways to break the game I think I missed it. And look out for major issues, right? So this is where you will often see the early access games. But before early access came around, they would still often use the in-house team for this because they still don't want that to get out there so clones don't get made, right?
Right.
As soon.
Or bootlegs.
Bootlegs will be made if your game is successful.
Gonna get leaked.
But they want to pause that so they can get their game out there. So during the beta testing, the game needs to pass through many testing methodologies such as performance testing, stress testing, game compliance testing. Testers run the game seamlessly for hours together on many devices to check any performance or server downfall.
Man.
I will. There's big asterisks here.
Yeah, I was just thinking that myself. Like, well,
This is the ideal. This is what the beta testing phase, in theory, in game theory, should be.
Right.
But as we see, many games since the beginning of the video game industry have not gone through this testing.
No, this is totally idealized.
Yes. Have we seen? We did the worst games episode.
Yeah.
How many of those games do you think went through performance testing, stress testing, compliance testing?
Dude, I think the one where you have to stand in line went through compliance testing.
You do have to comply to be in a line.
You had to make sure.
Yeah.
That's
hilarious. E.T., do you think that went through performance testing?
I don't think that went through any testing.
So this is, in theory, how it should be, right? Think about good games that have come out. They went through the alpha, they went through the beta, they did this testing. First thing that comes to mind in a pre-early access world is maybe the first Halo game.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That game, you can see where the quality that it came out at, with the polish that it had. It had early to alpha testers. It had beta testers running these rigorous tests. But beta testers, the in-house team can't get all the bugs. So it still had them, but it was still a very polished game.
Yeah, that's games. They're never going to get all the bugs.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was great.
So let's move on to some of the versions of these beta tests.
Yes.
And we have the open beta test. So this actually did happen before early access. This is probably the one that's closest to what early access is now.
And this is one that I'm most familiar with. I feel like a lot of people would probably be most familiar with, like open betas and stuff like that. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think this is where the idea for early access came from.
Yeah.
It's like, why don't we charge for that? Why don't we have people pay us to test our
Why are we doing this for free? This takes effort. This takes time.
And so the concept for open beta is you release the beta version of the game to everyone that's interested. And then this interested group will play the game, share reviews, and to the public, to the publisher, and then they will rework those issues as it goes.
Yeah, and it builds some hype, and you know, it's got a bunch of different purposes and functions.
And the main difference here between early access is that you pay to do it with early access.
Yay!
The concept here of the open beta test before early access was you were helping them, so you didn't have to pay them. But they found out they could monetize it.
Yeah, who knew that you could make people pay to help you?
What? It's crazy. It works. It's just, listen, like you said, the advertisers had to get a hold of it so they could frame it the way they needed to.
It's not about what it is, it's about what it looks like.
About the lens you funnel it through.
Exactly.
Perspective. So then they had the closed beta tests.
Yeah.
Which came after that, and so this is testing done only by the closed set of people that probably did the alpha testing.
Yeah, you get invited. This is where you get like reviewers or maybe streamers and stuff getting in and like, oh, tell us about the function. How does this work on your, you know, all the development questions.
And they'll have non-disclosure agreements. And this is where you'll hear streamers say, I played the game, can't talk about it.
Can't talk about it.
Another one that I'm familiar with is from WoW. So they'll pick specific people it might be out of a random pool of people, or people who paid for the game in some respect or played their last games and are on some list, and they might get sent beta keys through their email. So WoW has this thing, should be a picture up on screen here, where with your Battle.net account you can opt in to the various Blizzard games. So I'm saying WoW, but Blizzard does this. You can opt in if you want to be eligible for those beta tests.
That's pretty cool.
Which I thought was pretty neat.
Yep.
Another one I saw on the wiki that I thought was pretty cool was the Halo 3 beta. This actually came out for the Xbox 360 when you bought the Crackdown video game. And what you saw down in the right-hand corner, this is on the screen too. I had to look this up because they said, yeah, it was right on the cover. There's this little silver icon that says, get the Halo 3 beta when you buy this game.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Genius.
And we were talking about in the pre-show how this helped both games. This led to, I think there are 3 Crackdown games now.
Oh yeah.
And then, Halo. People only bought that game to try out the Halo beta.
And they got a whole game with it.
Mm-hmm.
Look at that.
Yeah. Wow, we got a game. And so Halo 2 was crazy successful. So awesome marketing opportunity for them there. And then we talked about the extended demo. I guess I did mention that. Yeah, the demo discs, right? You get little 5-10 minute little demo discs.
I love these things.
Me
man.
too.
That's how I got to play some of the weirdest and most out there video games for the PlayStation and everything. Was just these samplers, because they're games I would never Oh yeah, I want to play that. What was it, like a rap hip hop? Timing, press buttons type of game. I can't remember the name of it, but I wasn't gonna buy that, but it was cool to check it out.
And
right?
It's a really cool concept too. It's I had, I wouldn't have played a motocross game, but it just came with one of my GameCube games. And I played that demo disc a lot, because I was like, wow, this feels cool. I wouldn't choose this myself, but now it's here. I'm like, maybe I want to try it now.
Yeah, it's a nice little taste.
A little taste of it. So that is alpha beta testing. Think about this process here of the 3 major stages: alpha, beta, full release. And then I guess the 4th stage would be fine-tuning, right? Patching, fine-tuning.
Yeah, patching, expansions, future content, live service, maybe.
Stop. I hate it.
Words have power, folks.
I hate live service games.
It's content. It's not art.
Content, baby.
It's for the live service.
Wait. So I spent $70 on this game. I get the whole game, right?
No, we're gonna piece it out to you in small doses over a long period of time.
But I won't have to pay more.
Actually, you'll pay more than you did previously for expansions.
Okay, but will I be getting more content than your old games?
No, it'll be it'll decrease over time, actually.
Oh, okay.
So you'll be getting less and less, but you'll be paying the same amount.
This sounds like an idea. Why will I do it?
I don't know what it could be. I don't know what to call it.
So it's a live service. So as a service, what are you providing me?
A life.
What? Oh, so I gotta log in every day?
Yeah.
Oh, no. Wait, so it's your job.
We'll have challenges.
So I'm paying to work.
There's a work quota.
No.
You gotta get those rares, man.
God. Oh, this is true.
Loot scores.
I gotta get the leaderboards. No.
Sorry. Where were we?
We derailed. This isn't a live service.
No.
It's early access live service.
It has nothing to do with that.
We'll talk about modern gaming paradigms eventually. But yeah, so this was essentially a model. In theory, we put an asterisk here. This is a model for quality control for games.
In theory.
In theory. So if you go through it and you do this right, you'll get the games like the Halos. If you don't do this, you get the games like, all the games that led to the crash of 1983. The video games crash. And we talked about that in our worst games of all time. Most boring games of all time.
Boring games. Yeah,
Check that out. E.T.
was a big part of the crash.
What's a modern game that was real bad that you don't think went through these steps?
Oh, man.
There's so many.
It's about a biker. And
Death Stranding.
Technically, no, that was really high quality, but it's.
I just think about Norman Reedus.
It was functionally broken, just in every single way, the frame rates, it just wasn't fun to play.
When you say that, I'm thinking about the new Star Wars games.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because the first month they tell you not to play those games because they're just broken.
What? Why?
Yeah.
How?
They're just the frame rates are terrible. They're not optimized. They say just wait a month. That's all the reviews on Steam. With the newest ones, the kind of Dark Souls-y type combat Star Wars games. Can't remember what they're called. But yeah, they just say don't play them for the first month.
Jedi Survivor.
Survivor, yep, that's the one.
Yeah.
People were saying even they have the most up-to-date computers, and it still just crashes and lags. So They're like, it's great the next month, though. It's great the next month. It's worth meeting that deadline, even if the game's broken. Anyway, moving on.
Quality, should we move on?
So okay,
this hurts my head.
Yeah, this is a painful emphasis. Where did it start? Where did early access the concept of you pay the developer to help them test their game? Where did that come from?
Yes. When did the rot start setting in? Not that I'm judging.
2009.
2009. We know the year.
We know the year and we know the game. It's a game where many people are familiar with. Minecraft. This is the first notable game to use the early access model.
See, I didn't know this.
I didn't know this before researching this episode either. This is super interesting, but we know the history of Minecraft. It started out as a browser game, and it began development by Marcus Pearson in 2009 while he was working full time. And so the alpha version was very popular. Within the first month, it racked in many players. So he thought, what if I give people the option to pay? So he released that alpha version and added a means for players to pay €10, roughly $15, to access the game.
Oh no, I remember now. There's just like a permanent, this is in beta, this is in alpha, stuck on the Minecraft launch screen. It's so I didn't even notice it because I see it every day type of. Whoa! And, sorry, go on.
I know that I was like, this is a full game, right? When I was playing it back in the day, there's so much to do with it.
So much to do.
Even in that alpha version, I thought it was a full game.
Features, content, mods.
But due to the success of this payment option, he was able to quit his job 8 months later. He founded Mahjong and fully released the game in 2011.
Nuts, man.
And so during the early access / beta, nearly 2 million players purchased into the game, and the company raised $33 million. I think early access was a success.
Yeah. The first early access was a resounding success.
It's now the best-selling game of all time, and it started as an early access game, which is insane. And so now it's popular. Early access is here.
Yep.
And from that point on, other developers and storefronts created early access programs. That was cool. Let's get in on this. Let's go. Boom, 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 boom. So this is not an extensive list by any means, but I have some notable ones.
Okay.
And so the first one is the digital storefront Desura launched an alpha funding initiative in 2011 to help indie developers promote their upcoming titles.
I think I've heard of this one.
But the most notable one, and I think largely the reason why early access is the household name it is because of Steam's early access program in 2013.
Yeah.
So this released on March 20th, 2013, and it had 12 games, which we will talk about. I found all 12 of these games so we could talk about where they're at today. But first, let's go through more of these, right? So the concept for this early access, the Steam early access, was before the games were released, developers could solicit feedback from the Steam early access purchasers so that they could provide input into the game. So instead of an in-house team or an open beta, people paid in and they gave mass feedback to the game developers.
Seems all right.
Seemed all right, and we'll see pros and cons.
Right. It develops from there.
Oh, what's next? GOG?
Yeah, good old games.com.
Games.com.
CD Projekt Red owns this platform. Okay. They focus mainly on older games, games that don't work on modern hardware and stuff.
Oh, good.
And they try to update it for modern hardware.
That is nice.
It's
preservation.
Really cool. Yep.
Good.
At least somebody's doing it. And that makes them better coders, makes them better at doing stuff with games, you know? And
yeah, that is good practice, isn't it?
Right?
It's huge. Yeah, because that's in some of the research I was seeing. It's kind of hard to play older games on modern tech. So that's cool that they do that, to preserve the older games.
That's why they don't necessarily have like as big of a catalog as Steam may be, and like not as like widely spread games. Like they got The Witcher on there and stuff like that because it's CD Projekt Red and like Cyberpunk, but it's mostly old stuff and like stuff that you'd never heard of or think to play just because it's like so old.
I like that they're treating it like a library.
Yeah,
that's cool. And as you say that too, the smaller catalog is probably due to their storefront's policy of having more of a venting process for the quality of the games. So they implemented back in 2016. They implemented a 14-day, no questions asked refund policy for early access titles.
Unheard of, yeah.
Which is crazy, which is awesome because like you are buying in to test a game, and it's a test, right? There's going to be issues, and if it's a broken mess, you want the opportunity to say, I don't want to support this project.
And I feel like that's a normal approach to this sort of thing. It's like, oh, we understand this is you testing a product. You're not like, it's not complete, and if it doesn't get complete, then like you should probably have some way to get that back or
exactly. Right. And I like the flexibility. 14 days, no questions asked.
Pro-consumer.
I love that. It really, like they say here, removes the potential risk, one of the potential risks from the buyer. For Steam, I think it's 14 days and less than 2 hours.
2 hours.
You can't even see some of these games, like
some games,
the core mechanics in them.
Yeah, that's like the tutorial is longer than 2 hours, so like you're not even. And some game developers are making games purposely on that, where all the good stuff is front loaded, and then once you get outside that 2 hours, there's just nothing.
Oh, that hurts.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking about how how long do you think it took to get like to the core loop of that game? To really start feeling what it has to offer, the goods.
Well, probably 10 hours maybe?
I could get behind that because that's really when you start branching out of that starting area, getting like your first saddle, first rideable pals.
And you're like pulling up the map and going, okay, there's all these edges, let's go into them. You've explored the immediate, now it's time to branch out.
Yeah, so kind of limiting there with that 2 hour policy. So that's where what does this stand for?
Good Old Games.
Good Old Games came along and was like, let's open that up and take some risk off.
Yeah.
And then you had
itch.io. Yeah, this one's more for like the indie and like stuff that can't make it onto Steam or GOG because it's like we're not backed by a company. We're just like a dude in a closet somewhere making a game. Like they have no qualms selling like broken and busted and like what is it? The anime like RPG Maker games.
Oh, really?
There's tons of them on there. There's a huge like free RPG Maker games and stuff, and like there's some real artists on there. But
you're gonna have to really sift through that.
Yeah, really sift.
That's cool though. Like it's awesome that they have a less intensive place for people that need a less intensive place to just get their game out there.
Right. It's a little more loose. It's a little more like doesn't take itself seriously. It's just like
because I know Steam's process to get on there is it's quite a lot to it.
Yeah, same with GOG and what is it, 2K, Epic Game Store or whatever, the Epic Game Store. It's like they have standards and stuff like that. Not saying itch.io doesn't have standards. I'm just saying it's a little more loosey-goosey.
Yeah.
That's my impression anyway. I don't really use it. It's just... It's available.
It's a good impression to have.
Right.
It's better than my impression because I know nothing about it until this episode.
Yay!
But I do know about the Humble Bundle.
I mean, we love the Humble Bundle.
We love the Humble. I got many games from that. And so the Humble Bundle created the Humble Store for indie developers. And the idea for this is to give them an opportunity to get their games onto Steam.
Yeah.
Which I think that's really cool. And, of course, we have the grassroots, the crowdfunding, the Kickstarters, the Patreons.
Yay!
We love those around here. They're okay. I just wish Patreon didn't take so much. That's my qualms with it. They take like 30% or something crazy. So does Steam.
What are they, the government?
Ew. So what does this all say, Ron? Early access is here to stay. It's not going anywhere.
Oh.
It's locked in.
Oh. Like a cancer. It's here to stay. It's not going in. Maybe not that bad. That's a little harsh.
That is a metaphor we could use.
That is a metaphor, but it's probably not as deadly or as serious.
Now, I would use that metaphor for live service games.
Okay. I'm on that. I'm on that wavelength. Okay. I can appreciate that.
I want to rewind a little bit and talk about what are the goals and intentions of here. We know that early access games are here to stay, but what do they aim to achieve by using this model?
Money.
Money.
Let's make money.
Dollar signs.
Right?
Mm-hmm. That is how it started. We saw that with Minecraft.
Yeah.
He needed money to stop working so he could make his game. So that is really number one. It's funding. Mm-hmm. I put testing at number one, but let's switch it. Funding is number one.
Testing was like the original.
It was the original, but now it's like, let's flip those a little bit. Mm-hmm. So funding, right? So indie developers often lack the source for funding their development and a reasonable way to test the games. Mm-hmm. So they can put these out there. People want to check out the game. They can get money. They can spend more time to make the game better. And then they can use all that feedback for testing. And it's just, ideally, this is the loop that you'll get. It's like they'll give you money. You have more time to work on it. More time makes it better. More reviews lets you know what you need to use that time on. Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah. It's just all right there built into it. It's like get money to make money.
Exactly.
Very straightforward.
And then advertising.
Yeah.
Which is like a bullet point for money.
Yeah, because you got to have groundswell. You got to have word of mouth they always say this, advertisers always say this, word of mouth is number one above every other form of advertising. So if you can get in people's hands and get them talking excitedly about it, they just did your job for you. You don't have to do advertising budgets.
Absolutely. And Power World, obviously Power World's on my brain right now, but Power World is blowing my mind because this is word of mouth. All the advertising 100%. They did is they put out once a week, once every other week, they put out a 50-second video of a character from the game. They didn't do an ad campaign. It just word of mouth. People said, "Oh, see that game with Pokemon with guns?" And it blew up. It's the second most played game on Steam with concurrent players ever. And
it was word of mouth.
All word of mouth, which... But there's a fun game behind it. Make sure you do that, developers.
Yeah, and like a lot of trends, early access, I feel like Minecraft was the same way, word of mouth, right? Early access helped to get get it out there. You see that a lot with the successful. Bringing in their flash drives with Minecraft. Here's my exe of Minecraft. Pass it around. Get it installed and play it. But yeah, it's ubiquitous. It's like the most successful ones always had that edge to it.
They have a hook that makes players want to talk about it.
Oh yeah.
Power World did that big time. I think V Rising didn't explode in the same way, but it did. Like, it's a huge success from a very small development team. The fact that they had, I think they approached like 300,000 concurrent players for an early access game. That's huge. That's huge.
It's unheard of before early access.
Exactly.
I could never. Like, what indie games...
Don't quote me. I'll check after the show.
Right. Yeah, let's
I know it was well over 100,000, though, which is huge for an early access game. And any game that can sell that much. Like, that's crazy.
And you never saw that with indie games before early access, in my opinion, anyway. Maybe a few around the same time as Minecraft, but really, I think Fez was an early indie game that was really successful, but again... I didn't have 100,000. I don't think.
No, I don't think so. And it's so nice about the modern time too. Is like we have these numbers to know, like to correlate and see like how much is this successul? How many people are playing this? How many are being sold?
Yeah.
In a way that it's hard. It was hard to do for us in high school. But we do have some real numbers here. We got some stats. I got some stats for you here at the end
data
of the episode, Ron.
Hit me with it.
So we talked about Steam's early access program from 2013.
We sure did.
And there were 12 games on that. And I was looking for those games. It was hard to find. But of course, where did I find them? On Reddit.
And this adds a whole historiography argument I could make about gaming, and like, why do we not have like gaming historians? But anyway, sorry, go on.
Ooh, that's another podcast.
Oh, that's something that really gets my fire going.
Yeah.
Is the like, why was this so hard for you to find these 12 games? This should be like on a plaque somewhere, like a monument. Like, these are early access.
This is history. This is when the thing started. But anyways,
good or bad,
some person on Reddit made this. Their name was deleted, but it was the oldest games on Steam early access. And so what I did is, this post came out in 2019, but I went in today and saw where the games are all at. So I thought it'd be cool to go through these and see, okay, where are they at now? And which
current year.
What are successes? And successes here I defined as positive Steam reviews and positive sales.
Simple, boom. You got the crowd and you got the wallets.
Exactly. And so this first one is Arma 3. This one was a huge success.
Yeah.
Huge success.
Hyper-realistic military sim. Who thought this was a good idea? This is where you see the Battle Royale, like the DayZ and stuff. Like, these are all mods of Arma 3.
It really is, too, because Arma 3 had, like, huge battles, right? Like,
huge
200
maps.
players,
The map in Arma 3 was a realistic 1-to-1 scale of, like, the island of Crete or something like this. Like, the people designing the game got arrested and I think are still in prison because they were taking realistic, like, photographs of, like, military bases and the entire, like... They mapped out this island, right?
Wow.
And so it's hardcore. Even the development was hardcore, where they got arrested for military espionage.
That's some respect right there.
And hyper-realistic, hyper-accurate. Yeah, there's still clans and communities battling it out in, like, fake Vietnam somewhere in Arma.
That's amazing. That is a success right there. That's a legacy, and it's still out. Released in September 2013. It still has very positive reviews.
It's got a really cool Star Wars mod.
Which, very positive, I think, is 90 to 95% of the reviews have been positive. Mm-hmm. Huge. And so next we have, Kerbal. Kerbal Space Program.
This is another one that's like, how did this get successful? Because it's based on, like, realistic Newtonian physics, and it's a space program game where you're actually battling against gravity and, like, gravitational pulls of planets and systems in order to, like, land on the game's moon. Because you're not on Earth, it's Kerbin, because it's the Kerbals. They're like little hamster people.
I've seen the little guys.
Yeah, little hamster people that you kill in or low orbit over Earth. They, like, crash into the ground and stuff. But it's just a really accurate space sim.
Really unique, accurate space sim. And what I'll say, when I say release, so all of these came into early access on March 20th. When I say release, that's the full release from that March 20th, 2013. So this came out on April 27th, 2015, about 2 years, and still has overwhelmingly positive reviews.
It's got a sequel out now, killing it.
Up next, we have Prison Architect, released on October 6, 2015, and it is mostly to very positive reviews.
Yeah, this one's just kind of an indie darling. Like, it's nothing, like, earth-shattering, but YouTubers play it, people play it. They still do challenge runs and stuff all the time.
Really?
Like, yeah, it's
nice.
It's pretty all right for a little single-player, I don't know, like city builder sim type thing.
Yeah. All right, another success there. So up next, we have Drunken Robot Pornography. I haven't heard of this one before this episode, but it still has very positive reviews. It released in February 2014. Up next, we have Gear Up. So this one came out in January of 2015, and it has mixed to mostly positive reviews.
Yeah.
And most of the reviews I was reading is it just kind of is a dead game. No more development, and people were like to the game when it was out. Not anymore.
That's something that happens with early access games every once in a while.
Yeah.
So they just sort of stop.
It happens, you know. If the community moves on, you don't have anything there to keep them. It's going to happen. So up next, we had Nomori. How would you say that?
Nomoria?
Nomoria. So this came in February 2016. It is mostly positive reviews. Up next, we're getting into some of the failures. So Kinetic Void came out in November of 2014. This has overwhelmingly negative reviews.
Never heard of it.
Never heard of it's Starforge, released in 2014. It is actually delisted from Steam and is available for free on their website.
And this is actually the company that made Starforge has gone on to make other such games like Starforge that are terrible and complete failures. Like Starforge is completely busted, like doesn't work. And they just keep pumping these
they just keep doing it.
Like fake games out to like try and hook people with similar similar ideas to games that are coming out. I think they had like a Reign of Kings or something at one point, which was like a Starforge medieval, and they just abandoned that one at one point.
Sheesh.
Like,
so, another failure.
Yeah, they're known for making sandbox games that fail and just don't have all their stuff implemented.
Okay, so they didn't learn.
No.
Darn. And we see that
the wrong lesson.
And so now we're in the second half of this list. I think we're seeing the games that developers that didn't learn, that learned the wrong lesson, as you said. So Patterns. I don't even remember when this came out because it was abandoned and removed from Steam. So it never went to full release.
Never heard of it.
Under the Ocean, removed from Steam, never fully released. 1, 2, 3, Kick It, Drop the Beat Like an Ugly Baby. Great name. Come on, ride that great name. But it's still on Steam.
It seems like a joke.
You can't purchase it. And it never left early access. Mostly negative reviews. And then another good one. We have one more good one.
Yay!
One more good one.
I love this one.
Tell them.
Kenshi.
Yes.
Yes. It's so fun. Open world sandbox. Yeah, I said it all earlier.
This one was in early access for 5 years. It released in 2018. But it now has very positive to overwhelmingly positive reviews. I think the current reviews are overwhelmingly positive. Overall, very.
And it's on its way to a sequel.
Really?
Yeah.
Awesome. Love to hear that after a decade.
Sequel, prequel.
Heck yeah, that's awesome. So what do these statistics say? So if we look through all of 12 of these, it says 7 to 12 have mostly positive reviews or better.
That's pretty good.
6 out of 12, excluding the geared up because the recent reviews are mixed.
Gotcha.
So that 50%. And then 5 out of 12 or 6 out of 12 if you include the geared up with the mixed reviews have been delisted, removed from Steam, negative reviews, or abandoned. So what does this say? It's a coin flip.
Yep.
What does early access mean? It's a coin flip.
It depends on what you're using it for.
Yep. So yeah, I thought that would be cool to go through the original ones here, but I thought on our way out of the episode, it'd be important to just talk about some successes, talk about some failures real quick. And big success here that just was so good is Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah, bless Larian. Thank you.
This is how you do early access.
This is how you be a developer. This is how you do games. Like, I love it.
They had the game out for $60, but they were very clear about their intentions. You will only access Act 1. From August 2020 to August 2023, you will access Act 1.
Clear communication.
Very clear. And then we will fine-tune the rest of the game based on those reviews. And that's what they did.
Genius.
It's what they did. It's huge. It's the 8th most played game on Steam with 875,000 concurrent players. And it's been 3 years in early access.
And Larian's known for using early access for all of its advantages.
Very well.
For all of their games.
Yep. Up next, we have Pal World. We've talked about this a lot. Very successful. We have a graphic here. They have 19 million players in less than 2 weeks.
What?
So 12 of those on Steam, the other 7 million on early access. That was 2 weeks ago at the time of recording. So who knows where it's at now. It's the second most played game on Steam with concurrent players at 2.1 million.
Like, that's the population. That's more than some countries, you know? Like, that's a country.
Pal World.
Pal World was a country.
Pal World is a country. Oh, man. Well, we don't have time to get on a tangent. So Minecraft.
Gotta keep going.
It's the best-selling video game of all time. If you don't count Tetris, all of Tetris' different version, the best single game, Minecraft.
Everyone's played it. Everyone loves it. If you don't like Minecraft, that's fine. Do it over there, please.
Do it over there. Yeah. Do it underground. So we're going to run through this list. You probably have heard of them. Risk of Rain 2, Hades, Slay the Spire, PlayerUnknown's Battleground, which is the number one most played with concurrent players on Steam. Fortnite, Don't Starve, Dead Cells, Darkest Dungeon, Ark, Survival Evolved.
And I feel like PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds was just a spin-off of an Arma mod anyway. So
Really? I can see that.
I feel like that's another win for Arma.
Oh, another Arma win. Sweet. A couple of failures here. We talked about these on the DLC episode, patches episode, but Cube World, broken at release. 6 years it took to fully release. Then it released with less content than the actual alpha.
And I read the story on this one. It was like some college kid who just got way more attention than what he was expecting and just like couldn't handle the pressure and stopped because he's like, I'm just a kid.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do.
How to do this. Yeah.
So he set it aside and then came back to it years later to finish it up.
So, unfortunately, from our metrics, failure. Starbound, this is kind of like Space Terraria. It was abandoned by the developer, but I did see that the modding community is keeping it alive. So,
I didn't realize that it got abandoned.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we got a few minutes here. So let's just power run through some of these pros, these cons, and then
I'll do the cons. You do the pros.
Okay, here we go. Pros: money. You can fund the game.
Yeah.
You can get.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I'll just run through these. Run through cons.
Sure.
Okay, testing. You get people to test the game.
Yeah.
Many games would not be made without early access, or would get rushed out in a poor state. You get 2 launches: the early access and the full release, to get more hype. And
That's
then
huge.
Word of mouth. We already talked about that. But what are some of the cons?
Yeah, 2 launches, man. That's a lot of money-making opportunities.
Yes.
But the cons are, as Ben Kuchera at Polygon said so aptly, the early access model validates the use of unfinished games as a valid business strategy, which I kind of agree.
I do agree
There's just a lot of games that are just kind of left hanging in the Cube world. No guarantee games will ever be completed. No refund system. We were talking about Steam and stuff. No refund system, so you're stuck with an unfinished product or whatever. You got to be happy with whatever comes out. Which we've seen a few games that their completed state isn't good enough or what you want. And then no baseline for the state of a game. Has to be considered early access. Some can be considered complete games, while others are barely playable. Like. What is early access?
Very wide range of this definition.
Wild West. Some don't pick games back up at full release, so you may have 2 releases, but are you getting the full release experience? Right? Or is it being broken up and then
segmenting that player base a little bit?
Right. When you could have them all at the end there, instead it's like you get a hit, it peters out, and you get another hit. Maybe you would have had a bigger hit. But hard to say. And then, last but not least, this one, everybody's guilty of this one, has become sort of a derogatory term.
Ooh, that's a bad game. Is that early access?
Yeah.
I've heard that a lot. I've done that. Whoops.
Those graphics are bad. Is that early access?
Early access?
Those assets, man. Oof.
Yes. So what is our advice for early access games? For you, you know what they are now. What is our advice? And I actually stole this advice from a couple Redditors on this post. And this comes from Wraith Cadmus on Reddit. So
thank you, Wraith Cadmus.
They say, early access is okay as long as the following is true. The game I am buying today is the game I am willing to pay this much for. That's it. No gamble. No, it'll be good later. Just buy the game now at the price it is now.
And this is emptor beware or preemptor beware, the buyer beware type of stuff, which is like shisty, but also this is very true.
Very true. You have to know what you're getting into.
Exactly.
Right? And then KKV on Reddit says, early access is meaningless. Buy the game if you want to buy the game and you think it is worth it. The label you apply to it doesn't matter. And we saw this with the 50-50 coin flip with the first 12 games.
It's just perspective. It's just, what it looks like, not what it is.
Exactly. And you want to read this last one from account 82 and we'll get out of here?
Let's get out of here. It's getting close. The rule of thumb with early access is to research the games ahead of time and to buy them only if you think the game is already enjoyable and worth it, not because the devs have promises and development tables and stuff and it would become better in the future. It's now, right? It's
now.
All you have is now.
Yep. So do your research. If you like it now, how it is, play it like that, because it might not become something else. So that's episode 41.
Yeah, we're all about the research.
We're all about the research here.
Yeah.
We saw the stat. We always read our stats. So thank you so much for joining us. Thanks again to BCTV for letting us put on this awesome show. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, email us at shareddiscoveryshow@gmail.com or put them down in the comments. We read those. We love to read them. So let's sign off. Thank you for joining us on episode 41 of Shared Discovery. And as we close, please make sure to have fun, be nice to each other, play some games, and Ron, sign us out.
Yeah, riches must be divided, but wealth can be shared. Have a good one.